Cheers.
Well, thank you very much, Tyron. I just, before you go, I was a part of a research program that looked in the early stages about men's sheds and what they were going to do in a New Zealand framework that was kind of involved the Australian men's shed movement as well. And an interesting discussion went around the word well-being, and there was one sector of the New Zealand research group who didn't want to include the word well-being, and it was quite deliberate, because I guess there was the notion of what exactly is well-being. So I'm really just interested that wellness and well-being are two terms that you've used a lot, and I just would like to ask you that one question: where does it come from, and what does it actually mean?
And I suppose there is no answer to that, because it is a matter of interpretation. I mean, we tend to use that term because we talk about good well-being and good mental health, and mental health has been used a lot to say that you're unwell, but actually we've all got mental health and we've all got wellness, and we can all be in different parts of that at different times. So it's about acknowledging that well-being is part of who we are, and our wellness can cover a whole range of things. Some research has come out recently from Gallup, which is quite a large research organisation, and they talk about 5 areas of well-being. They talk about financial well-being, community well-being, personal well-being, career well-being, and relationship kind of well-being. And you need to have elements of all of those for your own well-being, but that makes you very resilient. But you can have different levels at different times. So I think what we tended to forget about or not think about is that things are a continuum, but they also run in parallel. And I know with a lot of health services, what's happened is that it's become quite compartment, kind of put in boxes. You can't do this unless you're well here. Where actually what we're seeing a lot more is that some of the things you're told that won't make you well are actually quite good for you. So I mean, within my main job, we talk about employment being a wellness intervention or a recovery tool, that actually most of us who have worked or want to work, we're actually better when we are working, not when we're told, oh, you can't work, because that doesn't make you any better. So I suppose that term for us is it's broader than just your mental health, because your well-being is a number of different factors, and you can be sad and miserable, doesn't mean that you're depressed, because life events can make you feel different things. So it's a continuum, and I suppose wellness is also about there are different parts of your life where you can be well, or you can be unwell, or you can be not as good as you want to be. So I suppose it's a bit of a fluffy word, some people would say, but I think it's easier to describe the whole using the term wellness, because it's not just about your mental health. And I think people have got lost in a little bit of the kind of, I suppose, that kind of tantric yoga spirituality interpretation of wellness, when actually wellness is across, for me, across a range of different kind of disciplines that are all connected, but sometimes you can kind of work on them all at the same time, or just focus on the parts that aren't as great for you at the moment, but you need to keep them all going.
Thanks for that. Are there any questions?
Yes, I brought along one of my sons, as you probably saw, and I said to him, if it doesn't sort of register with you, obviously you're free to which he has done. I'm not sure why he went, but I suspect that it had to do with the fact that he's just finished. You know, he runs his own small business. He's in Annapolis, which is going quite well. His partner, his wife, they've just split, and that's been a big problem, big sort of thrust on him. But the well-being, I just wonder the extent. I suspect that he thinks that you've got two different things here. You've got a business, which I am very interested in, and then you've got something about how to be fit, etc., which I feel I'm in fairly good shape for. So how do you get those two things much more closely connected?
I think it's about having different conversations, and I think what we noticed And that's only what we, well, I say collectively we, that the organisations that I mentioned earlier noticed was that people were becoming unwell because of their business, and they were really struggling to the point where a number of people committed suicide over issues that some of us may think weren't that big, because they were building it up inside and didn't have a place to go where they felt safe enough, or a support network where they felt they could share that. And for some people, because they ran their own business and their business partner was their life partner, so when things started to go wrong, the pressure they put on themselves, and the only option they could find to get out of that was to commit suicide, meant that something wasn't working for them, and it was around their wellness. They were becoming unwell, and that made them make choices that if they were well they wouldn't do. So I think it's about actually saying, in some places, that when businesses fail, it has an impact. There are some really robust people out there. Some of the biggest millionaires in the world have kind of been bankrupt several times, but there are also a lot of people who everything crumbles. They lose their business, they lose their house, they lose their partner. It can be quite devastating, and the business world doesn't really discuss that well, from what we noticed. So it is very individual. For some people it's not an issue, but for others they want to know they can go somewhere and find a bit of information. They don't want to be told it, but they just want to know, well, if I need to find it, I know where to go. And when I talk to a number of people who ran some of the big business support opportunities around town, they were getting people through the recession who were turning up in real dire straits, and they didn't know where to direct people because they had no knowledge of a number of other support networks out there. So I suppose it's about providing information in a way that people will look at that suits them. So, I mean, yeah, for me, there's always people that we won't suit, and that's okay because we can't be all things to all people, but there are some people that are really keen on getting that information to ensure that they keep themselves kind of focused on things that matter to them.
Yeah, but he said, you know, bring me up to date a couple of minutes later on. Now, if I say, right, I am going to bring you up to date, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to Karen Penny.
I'd just tell him to check out the website if he's interested. I wouldn't, because it's
on the web. Right.
Yeah.
So the situation. So that is good. There is a situation. I'm quite certain. It doesn't matter the fact that he's just lost his partner. That is only a sort of a part product. The main thing is that he's got to start to come to terms with the fact that what he is conducting in life and the way in which he's conducting it is very, very common to the way in which everybody. When I started off, I have to say, back in the 50s and 60s, you simply didn't say and talk or admit to most of these things. And of course, one of the great things that you didn't ever mention was the word sex. You weren't involved in sex, that was something that appeared on the screen or something like that. You didn't participate in that. But that sort of situation was, there are other less obvious situations which occur through business life that you simply didn't admit to. You didn't admit to the possibility that you might be going bankrupt, for example.
Exactly. And that's a challenge. I mean, I wouldn't claim. I mean, the world is moving so fast, even now with tools like this, and the pressures that different generations are under. I mean, you've got the whole text bullying thing. You've got a whole range of stuff that, even for me and a number of people, just wasn't around. And it's really hard to kind of comprehend those things. So things that probably the resilience of people is different, and I think some of the people today in business, their resilience is different. And I think it is just about saying, well, there's information there, check it out. If it interests you, but at least you know where you can go if suddenly you think, well, I might want to find that. You don't need to talk to anyone to find it, and I think that's where it is. We're not saying that everyone needs to, and there were some comments, we don't expect people to be spilling their guts and telling me everything, because I'm probably the worst person to speak to around that stuff, because I'll be going, what are you on about? I don't care, don't know. But this is where you can find information. So yeah, it's about saying this is a place you can go to, and it may be the first step, but we're not expecting people to to say everything, but by looking at some of the stories and the clips, people can see that it's okay, it's quite normal.
You've got a book down there, have you?
I've got a few little bits and pieces, so you can grab those.
The business.
Word well-being. Well-being is something we can impose or encourage in children. Well-being is something that children deserve, and we can provide it for them. To provide well-being for a male, or for the usual, I'll say male because I've never bothered or never tried to get inside the woman's head. The reality is that by very implication of saying anything to do with wellness or well-being or anything along those airy-fairy lines, you are by implication saying that it is unwell. And being unwell is not a pecking order phrase in the sense that males in the warrior phase aren't going to admit to being unwell. You're going to continue playing the rugby game with your testicle hanging on the ground because you are not unwell. It's like smokers in a restaurant. If a chef smokes, they will probably not wash their hands when they return from a smoke break because they are not dirty. It's the same thought process, right? So you are not, if I come to you and say, there is a forum for male well-being, well, I will go into that because I am not unwell.
Definitely, and that's partly why, I mean, some of this stuff has still got some health language, but a lot of the stories on there are just people talking. They don't use our words, and a lot of the business stuff that we do, we talk about kind of resilience, which is quite a okay business term. We talk about purpose.
Viability, all of those get into the male phrase.
So we use a lot of, and that's why we've talked about a business-to-business approach. So a lot of what we do on the website has a very business-to-business kind of focus.
It's like the depression you mentioned. You don't mention the word depression in the state that I see you look depressed or you appear to be depressed. What you say is that if there is any indication in your well-being, if you want to, if there is any indication of depression in what you think is happening to you, then these are the things that you can do. Because men think in a positive, logistical, practical method. They don't think in let's go to counselling or something like that. You get the first step going.
That's why also we're trying to have more kind of some of the event things.
I like the website.
And yeah, we had a really good, the first breakfast we had was really good. We had a range of different people come along, and we had like a mixture of business and some health people, but the conversation wasn't about anything in particular. It was just conversations that happened. So again, a lot of this is a learning journey for us as well. As I said, we've been live from July. We've got really good buy-in from the business world, which means that people understand and begin to know what we do and recognise that.
So you're in the case of the young fella and his business and partner and all that sort of stuff. All that he really needs is someone to hand him the 5 steps of grief process, hand it to him and say, read that, because that's going to happen. Yeah. Work through this step by step, and if you miss a step, go back and do it again, because it's going to happen whether you like it or not, and because it's written down, you're not the only person to have had this happen.
And again, that's part of the stories really, is about saying, well, hey look, everyone goes through it. It doesn't mean, it's that whole, you can't tell people it's not the end of the world when you're there, but by hearing that other people have kind of had some of those experiences, it makes it a little bit more kind of normal.
That's what I would give the young fellow, that grief process, and tell him to read it carefully, because he's going to go through it. We've all been there, done that, lost $1 million. It's quite easy to do.
I've never had $1 million to lose, but hopefully one day.
I've had an ex-wife.
Okay,
well, I am going to stop there.
Thank you very much. Now I'll hand over to, thank you very much, Tyrone.